today's focus is going to be on exponential, but at the same time, it's a small group, and so I will adapt. So if there are particular questions that you have about functions, so if you want some custom lessons, like you'd like me to explain something, I'm also happy to do that, especially if it stays as small as it currently is. But let's just start. So the exponential function, the standard form looks like this. And the biggest thing to notice is that the x is no longer on the ground. It's up in the air, floating away. And so the simplest exponential function often looks like this. And we often say that a must be basically greater than 0 and less than 1, or a is greater than 1. So there's a restriction on what number the a can be. So an example would be like, here's some basic exponentials. So like y equals 2 to the x, or we could have y equals 1/3 to the power of x. And so as we look at the standard form, this plus q is basically just going to shift the graph up. This plus p is basically a horizontal shift. B is the steepness of the graph, and A will also affect the steepness or the shape of the graph. So let's start with a simple multiple choice question. I want to know, if I give you the graph of y equals 3 to the power of x, and you see the graph here, what is the value of the y-intercept there? And I want you to work it out for me and then put your answer in the chat. So welcome to Manila and to Njabulo. And let me just see if anyone else is still waiting in the waiting room. So we are trying to solve for what P is. And P is the y-intercept. So if we want to find the y-intercept, if we think about what we were doing previously, we made x 0. But the thing with to the power of 0 is that it's always going to be 1. And so the y-intercept is going to be 0, 1, which, is there an answer like that? Yes, it's going to be A. Notice, okay, before I really get going with the section, give me a score out of 10 for how well you understand the exponential function, where 10 is like, I've got this 100%. 5 is like, I have some basic understanding, but I need to improve quite a bit. 0 is like, I have no understanding. Give me a score out of 10 for where you're at, so that I know how much detail I should be going into with my explanations and my mini lessons and stuff like that. And be honest, because I can't always hear your voice or see your face, the only thing I have to go on is the numbers. And so it's important that you are honest with that, so I can guide my lesson from there. Okay. So if we look, let me just draw a couple of exponential functions just to get us started with. If I have a basic exponential function like this, if that number is positive, what's going to happen is that the graph will always look like this, like it's taking off, like a plane taking off, and it'll go through at 1. There is what's called an asymptote over here that the graph never crosses. But if I take that basic increasing exponential and I make a transformation on it, let's say I do that graph, what that does is it shifts the whole graph down by 1. And so in this scenario, the asymptote is now at -1, and the intercept will be somewhere different. So I want you guys to work out what is the y-intercept for this new graph that I've just drawn, 2 to the power of x minus 1. I want you to work out what is the y-intercept. I'm going to draw the exponential graph for you now, but I want you to tell me what you think the y-intercept is going to be. So if we go to find the y-intercept, you have to make x 0. And so we're going to get 2 to the 0 minus 1, but then 1 minus 1 is 0. So actually, the y-intercept is going to be here. And, oh, that wasn't a very good one. Let me try again. So the exponential graph is going to look like that. Now, it never cuts this asymptote here. And what we notice is the x and y intercepts are actually the same number. It's over there. Okay, so these are called increasing exponential functions, because as x gets bigger, y gets bigger. And the second one was just an exponential function where it was shifted down by 1 unit. Now, there are other types of exponential functions, such as this one. Ooh. And what's different with this one is that it's not a value greater than 1 for the a value. So if the a value is less than 1, what's going to happen? Actually, before I do that, find me the y-intercept of this exponential function that I've just drawn there. And it's an exponential function because the x is in the air. Find me the y-intercept of that exponential function. What do you think, Naledi? What would you get for your y-intercept? And you, Manila, what did you get for your y-intercept? Pop your answer in the chat there. I'm getting 1 again. So this value over here is going to be 1. But because this is a fraction, what's going to happen is that the shape of the exponential graph is going to look like this. Okay? It's going to be decreasing and coming down. It's almost like a plane coming in for landing. So as x gets bigger, y gets smaller. Now, I want you guys to try and draw this exponential function for me. And what I'm going to say is that part of the step is going to be, first of all, step 1 is to determine what do you think the shape is. Step 2 is going to be to find the y-intercept. And then I want you to try and draw it for me. So if you're confused about what to do, let me know in the chat. But basically, I want you to try and draw the exponential function 1/3 to the power of x minus 2. You can look at how the other examples were done to help you if you need. And then once you're done with that, just say done in the chat. I'll just say here, we're doing decreasing exponential function. So it's like a decreasing one is like a plane coming into land. Hi, Naledi. So because of this value, the shape of the graph will look like this. Like it's coming in for landing. the next thing is, what is the y-intercept going to be? So when you're done, I'm looking for a done in the chat. Or y-intercept if you've got the y-intercept for this graph that I'm trying to draw. So if x was 0, then I would have 1/3 to the power of 0 minus 2. But this is going to be 1 minus 2, which is minus 1. So now my y-intercept is going to be over here. I'll say it minus 1. Okay. Now, the problem is I also need to incorporate this thing over here. So what does this minus 2 do? It brings the whole thing down. The asymptote used to be here. And so now there's going to be an asymptote at y equals minus 2. And what is the shape of this graph? So because of the yellow bit, because that's a fraction, it's going to be coming in for landing. And it's going to look like that. Okay. Now, there will also be an x-intercept. In this case, we can't work it out because we would need something called logarithms. But the basic idea that this exponential function is a decreasing one that moved down is all I wanted to show you. So that is my little warm-up to how to draw exponential functions. We're going to practice these properly now. But I just wanted to give a chance for any questions or comments about anything that you're unsure of. So the standard form for an exponential graph is this thing over here at the bottom. And what we found so far from the example is that this value over here is the asymptote. And then everything else, this value over here affects the shape, whether it's increasing or decreasing. And then the other stuff is going to do various other shifts. So I want you to draw me the following exponential function, which is over here. We'll call it h of x. I want you to draw that for me using whatever you can remember from the first part of today. And if you get stuck, pop your hand up and ask a question. But over to you guys. So where would you start with this one? So welcome to Nomfundo and Jabulo. Don't be afraid to ask a question, guys, or let me know what you're thinking. Okay, thanks for the help, Naledi. So I definitely think the y-intercept is going to be one of the processes that we need. So the shape, the y-intercept, and maybe we can even try and find an x-intercept if there is one, but the shape for me would be like it's taking off. And the reason it's taking off is because there's a positive 2 value. And what would the y-intercept be? Well, we can make x 0 so the y-intercept would be -3, or we did it like this. Oh, do you know what else we should write down? I think we should write down the asymptote. So because what is the equation of the asymptote going to be here? What is the equation of the asymptote going to be? Yeah, it's going to be y equals -4. So you know what? Just like we did with hyperbolas, it's quite nice to put the asymptote down because it kind of divides the field into 2 sides. And we know that it's going to be going through the point -3. Well, let me leave that out for now. Now the question is it going up to take off? Is the plane taking off, or is the plane coming in for landing? I think because of the 2, the plane is taking off. And so it's going to look like this. Now, it turns out we can work out what this x-intercept is. And the reason we can do this one, I'll show you now. So for the x-intercept, you make y naught. So naught equals 2 to the x minus 4. Can anybody suggest to me what the answer to this equation is? 4 equals 2 to the power of x. What do you think x would be in that scenario? So the only way 4 equals 2x is if x is equal to 2. So then we are going to label the x-intercept 2. The y-intercept is -3. And then we label the graph h. Okay, so what I want to suggest is we need a process that we can follow that will help us. So how about this? I think the shape is kind of self-evident. So why don't we start first with asymptote, then y-intercept, and then x-intercept if we can get it. And then the shape you kind of get from automatically, and then we draw it. So this is the process I'm going to recommend. It's a bit like hyperbolas. Asymptote, find the intercepts, the shape you kind of just learn. Give me a score out of 10 for how well you're following what I've done so far, because the group has grown a bit since the beginning of the lesson, and I want to know if I'm going too fast or too slow. So give me a score out of 10 for how you're feeling about what we've done so far. Get your vote in there. Okay, so now, thank you very much. The votes are coming through loud and clear, and that is very helpful for me to see what's going on. So what I want you to do now is you are going to draw for me the graph of k of x. K of x is an exponential function, and the reason it's an exponential function is I notice the x is floating in the sky. I want to suggest that step 1 is write down the asymptotes. Step 2 is write down the intercepts, and then you draw it for me. So off you go. You go and draw this exponential graph for me. If you have questions, you raise your hand. I would love to hear someone's voice if you're feeling comfortable to do that. And then let's do this. Why don't you tell me in the chat what your asymptotes are. Yeah, so it's actually so nice. The number is like It's just the one. -4 seems very popular at the moment. So I'm even going to draw it because I know it's coming up. Okay, what is the y-intercept? I'm going to make x 0. Now, if I do that, I'm going to get 2 to the power of 0 minus 1 minus 4, which is actually the same as a half minus 4, which is minus 3.5. So the point that I'm going to get is going to be somewhere over here. Now, for the x-intercept, I'm going to make y equal to 0. And then when I do that, so what are you guys getting for your x-intercept? You guys and girls. This feels a bit similar to the last one, but it's a little bit harder to see what the answer should be. So I think we make the bases the same. And if we make the bases the same like that, then I know I'm getting that x is 3. And Mfundo agrees with me. So x is 3 is going to be up here. Now, is this coming in for landing or is it taking off? Well, because the number in the thing was a positive value. Oopsie daisy, why is my thing not working here? It is 2, it's taking off. So it doesn't cross the asymptote line, but it's going to look like this. And this value was minus 3.5. And this value was 3. And then I need to label the equation of the graph k. All right, and I've drawn my exponential graph there. Give me a thumbs up if you could follow what I was doing there. Give me a thumbs down if you didn't. And then for those who are feeling comfortable, here's your next example. I want you to sketch the graph of f of x equals 3x plus 1 minus 9. If anybody has any questions they'd like to ask, now is a great time while students are moving on with the next example. Otherwise, I'm going to let you get stuck in while I get some water. What are you guys getting for your x-intercept for this exponential function? I mean, you'd rather use blue, actually. I get x is 1. Anybody else get x is 1 for your x-intercept? Give me a x is 1 in the... Okay, yeah, Namfundo agrees. Okay, that's good. All right. So is this taking off or is it coming in for landing? It is taking off. Oh, let me try that again. And this value here is going to be minus 6. And this value here is going to be 1. And the equation of the graph is going to be f. Okay, so in the first half of the lesson today, we explained a bit about exponential functions, and we looked at how to sketch them. And we mainly drew what I call positive or increasing exponential graphs. It's almost like planes that are taking off. After the break, we'll look at what we call decreasing exponential functions, ones where it looks almost like they're coming in for landing. And then we'll also maybe do a bit of finding the equation of an exponential. But let's have a quick little break. So let's just stand up for a second. I'm not going to make it a long break today because I think it's a nice pace. But let's just roll our shoulders. So we're going to roll our shoulders, roll them forward. Okay. Then let's shake out our arms. Shake out this arm. Shake out the legs. That feels good. And then let's just do 12 jumping jacks just to get ourselves awake. Okay, 3, 2, 1, let's go. 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then let us do a little brain break question. And then we'll come back to this. So here is your social media puzzle for today. Tell me what YouTube plus Facebook times Instagram is equal to. Enlighten me to what you think the answer to this is. So Nomfundo, YouTube is 7. Yep. I think I agree with you because that's the only way we get to 21. What is Facebook worth? Who thinks they know what Facebook? Should I give you a hint? It's not 10, but it's not far away from 10. Because 7 times 10 is 70 plus 10 is 80. So it's not 10. But what else could Facebook be? It's going to be 9. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so that's 9, 9, 9, 9. Okay, what about Instagram? Now, BODMAS is involved, so be careful here. What's that going to be? Sometimes subbing in values. So like 10 would be too big. Yeah, because 10 times 9 is 90, so that's too big. What about 9 times 9? No, that's too big as well. So Instagram is going to be 8, according to Naledi. 8 times 9 is 72, plus 8 is 80. Yes, okay. What is the final answer here? What is the final answer for YouTube plus Facebook times Instagram? BODMAS says we have to multiply first. So we get 7 plus 72, which is 79. Okay, awesome. I liked that one. That was cool. It wasn't too hard, but it was also hard enough that it was interesting. So I hope you enjoyed that. Okay, moving on to drawing another exponential function. I want you to draw this exponential function. I want you to be aware of the fact that it is a fractional number over here. But other than that, I'm not giving you more guidance. It's up to you guys to draw and to know the steps. But if you have questions, please do ask. I will gladly assist you. But I think I've given you the steps that you need to conquer this. So off you go. See if you can do it. Can you draw this exponential function? Well, luckily that part's predictable because I know that -8 is there. Now, what happens for the rest? I'm getting -4 as my y-intercept. And Nomfundo, thank you very much. Nomfundo has confirmed, agreed there. Now, to find the x-intercept, it's maybe a little bit harder, but not too bad. We've got this situation. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the 8 to the other side. Now, if I move the 8 to the other side, what I normally have to do to solve these equations is the bases have to be the same. And what maybe is a little bit hard here is to realize that this is 2 to the 3, but then a half can actually be written as 2 to the -1 times x minus 2. And then you need to take that and say 3 is equal to minus 1 x minus 2. And then if you bring, I suppose if you divide both sides, you get by minus 1, you get minus 3 equals x minus 2. And then if you bring the 2 across, it's a plus. So I get that my x-intercept is minus 1. So there's the minus 1, and the y-intercept was minus 4. Now, what's different about this graph is the half means it's not taking off. It's actually coming in for landing. It's decreasing. So you can't say coming in for landing on your math paper. You have to say it's a decreasing function. But basically, what's going to happen is the graph is going to look like that. And I'm labeling my intercepts minus 1 and minus 4. And then I must label this graph the graph of k. And that's it. Would you like to do another one like this, or would you be happy to move on to finding the equations of graphs? So say yes if you want to do another one like this. Say no if you don't want to do another one like this. Let the people vote and make the decision. Okay. All right. So far, the people have spoken, and the second example, people have won the vote, the election. But don't worry, people who want to find the equation, your voice will be heard as well. So let's do this one, and then we'll move on. So sketch me the graph of G. Sketch me the graph of G. I'll leave it to you to do. And just tell me when you're done. Okay, this bit is a little bit more interesting. We need to use a little trick. I really want this 1 to become, I really want this 1 to have the base a fifth. Does anybody know a trick or a clever idea that I can use to make it so that it still stays 1, it still has the value 1, but it is, yeah, boucle. Oh, fantastic. Maybe you have some clever bit of insight. What would you do to make that 1 fit better in this question?
So anything to the power of 0 is minus 1. So we can make the fifth to the power of 0.
Yep. Because anything to the power of 0 is 1. But what's awesome about this is now the bases are the same. And if the bases are the same, we can say 0 equals x plus 1, which then means my intercept is x is minus 1. So now I have my asymptote I've labeled. I have my y-intercept, which is at minus 4 over 5. And then I have my x-intercept, which is going to be at minus 1. And now I need to think about the shape. And the shape is coming from the fifth. So it's a decreasing exponential. And it's going to look like that. There's going to be a minus 1 there. There is going to be a minus 4 over 5 there. And the label of the graph is G. Okay, so give me a score out of 10 for how well you understand sketching exponential graphs. Give me a score out of 10 for how you feel about sketching exponential functions. Okay. So for those who are still in the process of learning, remember that you can re-watch this recording, or in the Google Classroom, there is last year's functions videos where I do even more stuff on exponential functions. And so if you want to top up your understanding, you can see last year's recordings, which are slightly different. And so you can look at those to help you out. But let's go to finding the equation of an exponential. So here's a past exam question. It says the curve of an exponential function is given by f of x equals k to the x. So actually, this is, in some ways, it's simpler than what we've been doing with. It's just got, all you have to do to figure out this equation is to figure out what k is. And they say that it goes through the point 0, 1 and the point b, which is the point 2, 9 over 4. Now, if I put x is 0 in here, it's going to be hard to find k. So the point I need to use to help me is I need to use the point 2 and 9 over 4 to find out what the value of k is. What should I do with this point to help me find the value of k? Yeah, I've got to sub it in. So where would I do that? I would say 9 over 4 equals k squared. All right, now, what is k going to be? What, when you square it, gives you 9 over 4? So if I square root both sides, now I know some of you will say it could be plus or minus, and you're correct, but I'll explain now why it's only going to be 3 over 2. When we are drawing an exponential function may not have a base which is less than 0. So even though this equation is plus or minus, to be the number in an exponential function, it has to be a positive value. So the equation of this exponential function is just going to be 3 over 2 to the power of x. And that is that. So that is a simple exponential, find the equation 1. Let's go, let's not do that. It's a bit too much. Okay, I'll tell you what. Well, I'll do an example of this for you to enter there. You don't actually have to do the question. I'll show you. And then in the next lesson, we'll start doing the stuff. But let's have a look at the exam question. It says, a positive exponential function passes through the points 0, 2, and minus 2, minus 1. You need to find the equation of this exponential function. And what they say to you is that that is what is the basic format. Now, what you have to do is you need to find out what A is, but you also need to find out what Q is. And all they give you to help you is they give you the point 0, 2, and they also give you the point -2, -1. And it says it goes through those points. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this first point and I'm going to sub it into this. And I'm going to get 2 is equal to a 0 plus 2. And then I'm going to say 2 is equal to a squared. Now, what do you think a is going to have to be in order to satisfy this equation? If I square root both sides, I will get that a is square root 2. All right, so we now know that a would be square root 2 by using this point, and we've used that one up. But now I want to find what q is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, so that was square root 2, and I'm going to sub the other point in. Now the other point, -1 was y, this was square root 2, this is going to be -2 plus 2 plus q. What is my q value going to be equal to? What is my q value going to be equal to if I use what's above here? Well, this is going to be power of 0 because -2 plus 2 is 0. And anything to the power of, well, let's do that. If I go -1, and then I go equals, now anything to the power of 0 is 1 plus q, and then I bring this to this side, and what is q going to be? Q is going to be -2. So what is the equation of the original thing that they wanted? Let me write it out for you using the values that I found. It would be y is equal to, and I found that that was square root 2, and this one was -2. Now, in the next lesson, what I'm going to do with you guys is I'm going to do more questions like this, where we have to find the equation of an exponential function. And we're also going to start to combine different types of functions together. So next week is remix week. It's about bringing all the different types of functions that we've learned about and mixing them all together so that we can see how typically exam questions are asked. And we'll also look at obviously finding the equation of an exponential function, which I kind of started introducing now. So it's the end of the lesson, but you know what comes next is the quiz. And so I have posted the quiz to Google Classroom, but for your convenience, I'm going to put it in the chat so that you can just get it done chop chop now. So yeah, everyone, thanks for coming today. I hope you enjoyed the lesson.